Going back to what you, Robin, were talking about as far as a logic, teaching. I remember from reading from the website, one of the specific examples, and this might help other parents out there, was when Taylor was eating and she would get food on her face and she wasn't aware of that. What did you teach her in a logic example?
Well, you can't ask her to feel it on her face if she doesn't feel it, if she doesn't notice it. You can't ask her to read the cues off of our face when we're going, it just not going to happen. So I thought about it. I thought, okay, well, what actually is the result that's going to have to happen? If she were going to feel it on her face, she would wipe her mouth, right? So we set it up so that she would basically wipe her mouth after every 3 bites, which is very frequent, but it allowed her to have something that she could remember, very quickly. And she was delighted to have a system that worked with her way of learning that solved the problem, because she didn't want other people to see, her dirty face either, or her, clothes, that sort of thing. So becoming aware became a logical process, and she's a smart girl. It didn't take long at all, and it was, solved.
So your mind is still capable of learning the things that aren't so logical. It's just very confusing to you at first.
I'd say yes. Things that, I don't know if you guys have any experience in chemistry, but in a lot of chemistry, a lot of it is counterintuitive. What you think would make sense doesn't, and that's so much harder for me to learn, because the logic makes me want to say the other way, and I think this is true with most people as well, but I think it's especially true for me. But things like English or social studies, where it's not as rule-based, I'm still very good at, because then I can relate it to my world. If we're discussing, themes in English, love or hate, or, themes about wealth or stuff, I can reference my world and the experiences my characters have had, and I can apply it to whatever book we're reading. So I can use that for those soft arts. It's mostly just counterintuitive things that are hard for me. Right now I'm taking calculus, and one of the hardest things for me to learn is a lot of the functions that they have no relation to the normal world, where I can't visually imagine any relation. So not just with math, but concepts that I can't relate to the real world at all become very confusing.
I'm the exact same way. I could always do the math that made sense, like that would be usable in the world, and the rest of it just completely, my brain didn't even keep any of it.
Taylor, tell me about what makes your Aspie mind very unique. I know from just researching you that you are an extremely well-educated student.
I would say that I think because I have an Asperger's mind, and it's so logic-based and it's so objective-based, and I think it's an advantage. I think anything in school that's logical, for me, I learn a lot faster than most people. I'd say the best example would be with geography, is that I learn geography so fast, particularly with like states or anything that makes the outline of a country or a continent. I learned so fast. What took most of my class several hours to learn the states of Mexico, it took me like 10 minutes. So it's those little things that make us, one, feel better about ourselves for our difficulties, and make us realize, we're competent people. There's some stuff we are better at.
And Robin, is there a specific instance you can remember with, looking back 2020 vision here, what were, some frustrating instance of teaching Taylor that, knowing now what you could have done differently?
Oh, well, I think actually that makes me think all the way back to when she was really little, and she was in the bathtub and I was washing her hair, and I dumped water over her, and she totally flipped out, completely flipped out. And my feeling was, oh, come on, it's no big deal. You just have water on your face. She did not get in a bathtub, I'm not kidding, for 6 months. We could scream. It's like, so I would not assume that I knew all of those things now. I would look back at that. But the other thing I would say is that when she was able to move beyond a diagnosis, we all kind of had this big sigh of relief. She was functioning, and we all just wanted to sort of put it behind us if we could. And I wouldn't do that again, because what I didn't realize was that she was going to have this Aspie mind for the rest of her life, and she was still going to learn differently, even if she was doing well enough to get along with everyone and get along, and so that her teachers didn't know and her fellow friends didn't know. She was still processing in her own way, and when I realized that, it was better to go back and continue to work with her and not take for granted that she was, going to be thinking like I am now because the professional said she no longer has a diagnosis.
I think that even actually helps me. And Zach, our son, has CP, just in the way that the mind works differently. Hearing that and knowing he's going to have a brain that works differently for the rest of his life. So even if it's not your child has autism or Asperger's, it's that their brain, a lot of the time with these neurological conditions, will just always work differently, and learning how to work with that. Like with him, it's going to be mostly physical. We have to teach his brain how to work a different way to be able to do the things he needs to do. So I think that's really helpful.
A question for both of you to answer. What kind of advice would you have for parents who might have just gotten a diagnosis for their child, of Asperger's or autism spectrum disorder?
I think the biggest thing is that it wasn't what I thought it was going to be. You can have a happy family, and you can have a kid that's differently abled, all of those kinds of things. It's just another part of life. And if you make it your whole life, that can be really destructive. But if it's a part of your life, a very challenging part of your life, but if it's a part of your life and not your whole life, you're going to do a lot better. And it gives them, I gave Taylor the room to grow into who she was going to be without assuming I knew. And I think that's awesome, because I don't care how many special needs you have, there's an individual in there. And she's going to tell me who she is if I listen. I just have to listen a little harder with her.
I'd like to add that I obviously can't remember very well, or can't remember pretty much at all because I was so young, but I think if a parent receives a diagnosis of, especially Asperger's syndrome, it's not a doomsday type of thing. Especially Asperger's is a very workable condition, that these can be successful people, and I think as long as you keep faith in those kids, they'll try harder. I think if you have this defeatist attitude towards it, the kids are going to pick up on that vibe, regardless of if they can understand your words or not. But if you have hope, and you have a very faithful and very hopeful sort of vibe, they'll pick up on that, and they'll try harder because of that.
Can I give you one other story that I think might be fun?
Yes, please.
To me, something that really inspired me on this was a young man who is in college saw Taylor's videos and has Asperger's, and he wrote, and he was so excited. He said, "I cannot thank you enough. I showed this video to my friends, and they finally understand. They finally get me. And thank you, thank you, thank you, because they've never understood me before. Now they understand when I walk down the hall, if I don't look them in the eye, exactly what it is, and I just can't thank you enough." And to me, everything is worth that.
How did that make you feel, Taylor?
That made me feel good. There's so many stories like that. There's another story where the woman didn't know about, a lot of my recovery was associated with the milk in my diet. And another woman didn't know about that, so she tried that with her kid, and it helped them so much. And the girl is getting a lot better. And it's just stories like that that really make it worthwhile. I'm doing so little, but it's helping so much. And it's really great to be able to do that. To make an impact somewhere, a very big impact with little effort, and relatively little effort, is really powerful.
Well, you're definitely making a huge impact, and I wish you the best. So we both wish you the best in your mission and helping others, helping parents, helping others with Aspie Minds.
So thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We really appreciate it.